The apple incident, a spark of genius. One of the most famous stories in the history of science is the tale of Isaac Newton and the falling apple. But how much of it is myth and how much is truth? Let's take a closer look at the moment when Newton's thoughts on gravity came to life. In the 1660s, Isaac Newton, a young scholar at Cambridge, found himself in a quiet retreat in his family's country home in Lincolnshire. The Great Plague had forced him to leave the university, and he spent his days thinking, observing, and pondering the mysteries of the universe. One day, while sitting in the garden, an apple fell from a tree. The falling fruit might seem like an ordinary occurrence, but for Newton, it sparked something extraordinary. This moment is often told in a simple way. Newton, struck by the apple hitting his head, suddenly realized that the same force that made the apple fall to the ground also might keep the moon in orbit around the Earth. It's an image that's easy to picture and has been repeated countless times. But historians tell us that the story isn't quite so dramatic or sudden. The key to the story is what Newton was thinking when he saw the apple fall. It wasn't that the apple hit him on the head, as the popular myth suggests. Instead, Newton was sitting quietly and asking himself a profound question. Why does the apple fall straight down to the ground, and not sideways or upwards? His curiosity about this simple event led him to an amazing realization. Newton's mind began to work through the problem. He thought to himself, if the apple falls straight to the ground, then there must be a force pulling it down. But what if that force wasn't just acting on the apple? He began to consider that the Earth might be pulling on everything, not just the apple, and that this force might stretch far beyond the surface of the Earth. As Newton sat in his garden, pondering, he realized that the same force that made the apple fall could also be responsible for keeping the moon in its orbit around Earth. He had discovered the concept of gravity, a force that extends through space, pulling objects toward the center of the Earth and perhaps beyond. This was the foundation of his theory of universal gravitation. The story of the apple, as we know it today, was largely popularized by Newton's niece, Catherine Barton, who shared it with the French philosopher Voltaire. Voltaire, in his writings, told the story of Newton's first thought coming from seeing an apple fall from a tree. This idea spread far and wide, cementing the image of the apple as a symbol of Newton's breakthrough. But it wasn't just Voltaire who documented Newton's ideas. Newton's friend and biographer, William Stuckley, also wrote about the event years later. In his memoirs, Stuckley described a conversation with Newton where the scientist recalled the apple falling while he sat in the garden, and how it led him to his groundbreaking thoughts about gravity. So, while the apple hitting Newton's head is a nice piece of storytelling, it's not the way the event happened. Newton's insight came not from a single moment of inspiration, but from careful thought, observation, and a quiet moment of contemplation. The apple tree that inspired Newton's thoughts has become an iconic part of his story. Various trees have been linked to the original, with descendants growing in places like the gardens of Woolsthorpe Manor, where Newton was born, and even outside the gates of Trinity College, Cambridge, where Newton studied. The specific variety of apple linked to the story is called Flower of Kent, known for its tart, cooking quality fruit. While we'll never know exactly which tree was the one that sparked the great discovery of gravity, the story of the apple has become a symbol of how small moments of observation and curiosity can lead to profound breakthroughs in understanding the universe. From that quiet garden, Newton's thoughts about gravity would go on to revolutionize science, changing the way we understand the very forces that shape our world. And so, the apple incident stands not as a single moment of discovery, but as a testament to the power of curiosity, observation, and the incredible genius of Isaac Newton.